Okay, so today we are going to be doing my classics wrap up. We're going to discuss the 3 classics that I read in the month of April. And we're going to start the video off with Dune. Dune is a classic sci-fi novel that a lot of other books and forms of media have taken a ton of influence on. It is one of the smartest and most well thought out books I've read. In some ways, it's one of the best written books I've read, and in other ways, I didn't take a lot of enjoyment in certain aspects of it. It's a book that I have extremely mixed feelings on. It's a book that I respect tremendously, but it's also a book that I have some frustrations with. It's a book that I dedicated an entire review to, and that review will be posted tomorrow. It is spoiler-free for those of you who are still wondering if you should read it, and I also go into a decent amount of detail for those of you who are super fans and really want to hear my thoughts. I think that it's brilliant, but I also have some mixed feelings about it, and at this point, I still don't know how I would rate it or how I would discuss it, even though I just spent a lot of time recording a discussion on it. I'm gonna leave most of my thoughts over there for the review because I just spent quite a bit of time on it. But it's a book that I still have very mixed feelings on, but I have a lot of respect for and appreciate it a lot, and I'm really glad I read. The other 2 classics that I read this month were Northanger Abbey and Mansfield Park. Mansfield Park is about a girl from a very poor family. Our protagonist, Fanny, went to go live with her relatives. However, her relatives treated her terribly, and she didn't have a good upraising. She grew up very, very shy, and she took a lot of abuse that her family gave to her. She also fell in love with her first cousin, who was raised as her brother and is a little bit scandalous. I really enjoyed Mansfield Park. I think that Jane Austen is one of the best writers I've ever read. All of her books are so beautifully written and so much fun to read. No matter what the content is, the way Jane Austen writes makes the book a joy to read. However, I did feel like the story wasn't long enough for the amount of pages devoted to it, and by the time I got to the end of the story, I was ready to be done, which is unfortunate and very rare for me for an Austen novel. And I felt like the romance wasn't played up as much as I wanted in this particular book, but Fanny is one of my favorite Austen leads. I think she gets a bad rap because she's not as feisty and strong-willed and hard-headed as a lot of her leads are, but Fanny is just, she has a quiet strength, and she still holds her own and stands up to those who are trying to push her around and trying to control her life. She just doesn't do it in such an outspoken way. She does it in a quiet and dignified and peaceful way. And I love her kind of strength as much as I love Lizzie Bennet's kind of strength. Then I also read Northanger Abbey, which was not at all what I expected. This is about a girl who grew up in fairy tales. This is called a book of satire, and I see that. I believe Jane Austen wrote this sort of as a spin-off or a satire for a really popular Gothic novel of her age, and I'd love to read that now. This main character has a ton of ideas in her head of what these Gothic homes should look like around her, all the secret passageways and all the mystery and evils that she should be finding, and she's a fun lead to follow. But I think the most charming thing about this book is how it's written, and it's not what I just said about Jane Austen's writing in general, but this is a really unique book for the way Austen narrated it, because she had the narrator step in and speak to the reader quite frequently, which is a trope that I love. There are so many times where the narrator would interrupt the story to tell us more information or to make fun of the characters, or sometimes to just go off on a tangent that has nothing to do with the story itself. The narrator just wants to talk to us about something else. And I feel like that was half of the charm of this book, even though I loved the main character and a lot of the side characters were just these extravagant, ridiculous people, which I really, really enjoyed. And the adventure that our character got into was also so over the top, and it was a lot of fun to read. But the narrator itself, their selves being so over the top as well, and being at times even bored with their own story, was so much fun for me to read. It doesn't have this big, complex plot that's woven together like Pride and Prejudice or Emma does. It's a much more straightforward story, but it's just genuinely so much fun. I'm on a really big Jane Austen kick right now, and I plan on, the only Austen book I have left is Sense and Sensibility that I haven't read yet. So that's gonna be read very, very soon. And then I think I'm probably gonna have a couple of Austen videos coming up. And then I'll probably just reread all her books because I'm just really into Austen right now. But those are some of the classics that I read this month. I really enjoyed all of them that I read. Be sure to chat with me more about these in the comments if you have read these before, if you plan to read them. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.